Boom! What's up, familia? Dayspring here with a very special episode of Power of X-Men. We have one of my favorite people in the entire world. He has an incredible Gene account from the Ashes himself, Calvin.
Hey, happy to be back. Excited for everything we will talk about. And thanks for having me again.
No, thank you for coming on. I am obsessed with everything you post. I never say this, but sometimes I feel like there's a social media account made specifically for me. And even before I started Power of X-Men, I was following you. I've said this before countless times.
That's
Your
crazy.
content is gold.
Thank you. And we do have a lot of the same posts. Like usually whenever I message you, you've got the same thing going on. So
We have a hive brain in that regard because I think like there's a beauty and an art to social media, especially if you're, I mean, in our case, very big Gene fans. We know what resonates. We know what we want to see. So you and I are always on the same
true.
page, and it's such a pleasure to do all those collab posts with you.
But you started the trend of the year where being a callback to the present. I love those posts. Like I've adopted them, and I'm like, actively saying that that was you, that was all you.
I
So I
mean,
love those kind of posts.
I listen. First of all, anything you telling me that you've adapted something for me. Like, first of all, I got like the Sailor Moon hard eyes right now. But yeah, it's so wild that people really engage with that kind of content. But I think it's more
Yeah,
of an extension of the content that you and I do because I think we like to create things that are engaging and elucidating for especially Gene Wanda fans out there because we love our queens so much.
for sure.
Okay, well, Calvin, why are we gathering today? What are we talking about?
Where so the first arc of Phoenix was done, and the fifth issue was very good. I don't want to sound too biased, but it was amazing. So we're just gonna discuss the highs and lows of the series. We're gonna be honest, what we like, what we didn't like, and we'll see if people agree.
You messaged me. I was on my way out to dinner, and you messaged me, had I read the issue yet? And I had it already fired up. And I was like, you know what? Before I step into dinner, I'm going to stop at the Barnes& and Noble in like Union Square, and I'm just going to read it. And you told me you're going to love this issue because you love the
Yeah,
White Phoenix and sort of those
it
vibes were
has
in there.
it has White Phoenix vibes. Yep. When I was reading it, I was like, okay, this is very Paul. I think he's gonna enjoy this.
I went to dinner that night with like the biggest smile on my face, and I wanted to reread it at dinner. So if you actually see
And
photos of me at that dinner, because we had a back room, it was like a private event. I'm on my phone the entire time because I'm just glancing through the pages.
no, I get it. That was what that was everything we wanted from the Phoenix series because, like, let's be honest, the first issue was great. Then it dipped a little bit in quality. If we're gonna be honest, we're we're just discussing facts here. Like when Corsair came in, it kind of lost its way. I would say a little bit, but then issue five kind of gets back to the core elements of what we want the Phoenix book to be. So that was amazing. I'll be honest with you, I was doubting the process a little bit because the whole thing with the zombie Asgardians and stuff and Odin, I was like, okay, where is this going? I think we've discussed this as well. I was like, okay, where's the book going? And then we were like, okay, Gore's coming in. I didn't know it would kind of lead to Jean, speaking to Eternity and kind of stuff like that.
When we have that first like Phoenix dance with the black hole, I mean,
Oh,
Stephanie,
I love that.
Stephanie's planting some seeds there.
Yeah,
And
for sure. She's playing a long game for sure.
she's one of those writers, and I read her Cosmic Ghost Writer, and I thought it was really good. I think Stephanie is best suited when you can see her with a beginning, middle, and end. And not that this is the end, but this is like the end of the first arc.
Mhm. A lot of people said that Phoenix reads better as an arc. Like you read one, two, three, four, five. But of course, we can't wait that long. We need to read each release. But I'm pretty happy with where it's at right now. So if you want, let's like go through each issue, I guess.
Yeah,
The highs and lows.
why don't we kick off with issue one? And we reviewed it on the podcast, and I think we both really
Yeah,
quite enjoyed it tremendously. And I think for us, like the peak was that Phoenix stance that she
the Phoenix,
does.
the Phoenix dance. Yeah, yeah. And that was a peak for me as well. Even like uh, how to say, like seeing Jean kind of so comfortable as the Phoenix was definitely a highlight for me for the first issue. I didn't really have any negatives with the first issue. I thought it was like the perfect start to the series.
Can I tell you what really resonated with me in that first issue was that they weren't going to do this melodramatic Scott and Jean separating because Jean is so powerful now, right? Which is something we
Yeah,
saw during Morrison, and I love what happened during Morrison. But I think repeating the past once we move past it isn't something that I really wanted out of my Jean book. I'm glad that Scott is like, hey, I'm on Earth. You go do your thing. You
hmm
go discover your power. And
yeah,
seeing Jean and Cyclops confident as a couple. And as you know, and I know we disagree on this, I am a big Scott and Emma fan, but it's hard to argue that Scott and Jean, look at your face. It's hard to argue that Scott and Jean together aren't a powerhouse. They are a powerhouse together.
yeah. It's like the OG couple, you know. It's like the ideal couple, and I like where they're at right now. Like they're not codependent because in Krakoa, a lot of people did think that Cyclops was, you know, too dependent on Jean, or you know, however you want to call it. He was like running behind her all the time, which I didn't have an issue with, but you know, everybody has their likes. So this is nice to see. Like they're still in a relationship, but you know, they're doing their own thing.
Well, I think
A
like
reunion is coming soon, I hope.
oh yeah, I
I
hope
think
so
issue
too.
6. Yeah, I think.
Is it in issue 6? Oh yeah, it is. You're right. I'm forgetting the preview pages of them like separate.
I think it's in issue
Yes.
6. Yeah,
Um, I really like for me, like I have wanted a Phoenix in the Cosmos solo book since Phoenix End Song. And I'm going to circle back to the
yeah,
point. We'll circle back to this point later, where Scott looks at Jean at the end of End Song and he goes, "Remember, you are Jean Grey. No matter
hmm,
what the cosmos
yeah,
tells you, you're Jean Grey. Go find your pieces." And she goes off. So for me, like the absurdity that Jean was just dead at the end of Phoenix End Song really just has always like boiled under my blood because I would love to see Jean in space exactly how she is now.
yeah. So I think right now, though, with Jean's new connection to the Phoenix, you know, having kind of reignited herself, you know, I think the relationship is very different now with Jean and Phoenix. It's not the same like it was. You know, you have Dark Phoenix and you have White Phoenix. I think they're bypassing all of that. I don't know if that's true or not. I think that we won't see the colors of the Phoenix anymore, but we are getting the upgrade soon. The Cosmic Queen Phoenix.
I love that Cosmic Queen Phoenix look, and I'm
Yeah,
glad we're not going to
same.
do another color. How do you feel about that Phoenix Resurrection black and red costume? Out of curiosity.
Uh, I love black and red as colors. Those are my favorite colors. But I do think it was a very random choice. Like I don't see any significance to it. You know, uh,
Yeah.
like it was just. I guess they just wanted to pick something that looked nice. I could be wrong. I don't know. How do you feel about that? Like,
I've always been kind of like a question mark on it. I've seen people cosplay it and they like it. I personally don't think it services the overall like Phoenix narrative, right? Like
same.
white being
It's like a
like
one-off.
ascending. Yeah. So like I think that was the last time they attempted a new Phoenix color and it was kind of like meh. I don't want to discredit for people who do like it, but meh. So I think kind of switching course and giving Jean like a Cosmic Queen outfit is very much needed. Um, and do
What I
something
like
different.
about the costume is it's kind of like the cosmos, and the only thing you can see visible is Jean's face, the you know the emblem, and the hair. So it's kind of like
Yeah.
she's blending with the cosmos. That's what I like about the look.
Well, I love. I mean, what do they call that pattern? The starry, shiny pattern. Like Wiccan has it too, and
Uh-huh.
some of his costume. I think it like services Jean so well. But for me, it's a tiara. I think Jean looks so good in a tiara.
Yeah, I do. Same. And I need to know about the hair. Like, is it gonna be on fire? Like, I just need to see it in panel, or I need to see a preview of it. Like, I won't relax until I see it.
What do you not want to know the first thing I thought about when you sent over the collab for those designs? Because it was during New York
Uh-huh.
Comic Con, and of course I had no reception. I didn't go to the panel, so the first time I saw it was when you sent it over to me. The first thing I thought about was Phoenix Force Creations. I cannot wait to see what Mike is going to do for a Marvel Legends custom.
I've already asked him. I was like, please, you need to save me a slot for this. Like, you're the only guy I'm going to for this. And he's like, okay, sure. Like, let like some pictures come out. We'll see what's there. And shout out to Mike, by the way. He's like keeps me content with Gene figures, and I hope that I'm helping him also in his creative his creative juice to create these figures. Yeah,
Well, you can't tell me this is a side tangent, but you cannot tell me that modern like legends aren't influenced by him because the way they're sculpting the
for
female
sure.
hairs like on those figures, that is such a Phoenix Force. He's been doing this for
Yeah,
years at this point.
and they're all following him for sure. They're seeing what he's putting out.
Okay. So issue one I thought was solid. I think my only
Hmm.
this is a complicated gray thing to talk about. Um Adani as a villain. Now, I
Oh,
don't
hate her.
I feel okay. Look, so I hate her. Yes, we're in agreement. I hate her, and I did not
Yeah.
respond too well for her having that narration. But I was talking about this with some other people in the past of what makes a Wolverine solo book so well is that historically
Hmm.
Wolverine has had villains that are fully rounded, created just for him. So I think
Hmm.
Stephanie took that concept and created a fully rounded villain just for Jean. I don't like her, but I appreciate the process and thought given to her.
I I wish that Stephanie would have created, like, instead of Pericus, because a lot of people are like, oh, they're using a throwaway villain from the I don't know whenever. And I wish there was like a villain solely dedicated to the Phoenix series instead of rehashing. But I could be wrong. Maybe he needs a resurgence. I don't know.
Well,
Yeah, but
speaking, no, go.
no, but the Donnie we both hate, so it's good to know.
I feel like she kind of like faded as the series kind of has progressed, and that's fine. Um,
Like when we
you
talk
know,
about issue 5, I'll give you my like theory on what I think of Adani and where I think she's going with this. But yeah, let's we'll get there, then we'll talk about it.
how about all right? So I'm gonna openly, I did not like issue two as much.
Oh, same.
Why didn't you like issue
First of
two?
all, like let's start with we have to speak about it. The tracing controversy. So what happened was a lot of hype was killed for the issue when previews were released, and people started they were playing like the guessing game. Where did he get this from? Where did he get that from? But then I appreciate that he went on overdrive and they had to how to say correct all the trace issues, the trace panels, which I appreciate that Marvel actually did that. But issue two felt so disjointed. It just felt like Corsair came in and Scott being very weary of his dad when we just saw how good their relationship was in Krakoa. I didn't like that. It just felt kind of regressive.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, that was like my issue with that was my problem with issue two. But there's a term apparently it's called the curse of twos. Apparently, every issue two is bad. Have you heard about that?
No, I haven't.
Yeah, that's what
It
they
may
said.
be true for another book that came out that we've talked about privately.
Yeah.
Mm, sorry.
I do think issue twos are not great. I think they're kind of setting up the story, but they call it the curse of twos. This is something I learned on Twitter, so it's new to me. I need to go back though and see if this is actually true.
Okay, that's fair.
Yeah,
With this issue too, I will say I like how it starts off the fluidity of the art of Jean sort of getting into her ship, taking off her boots, laying in bed, and being like, "Oh, what now?" Because, and this is something you
yeah,
pointed out to me, and we discussed in issue one, is that there is sort of this dichotomy between Jean and her Phoenix persona, which I really do like, and I think we see Jean flying through the galaxies, being extremely powerful, but at the end of the day, girl's tired. So I really did
yeah.
like seeing
Exactly.
that human
That
aspect
is
of
a
Jean.
nice touch. Yeah,
And like
which
I mean, like,
Stephanie excels at, by the way. That's
yeah.
one thing I'll say. I do like that she's giving us both aspects. You kind of see Jean getting tired. You kind of see her at full power. It's not like hyper powered all the time. It's kind of like a good balance.
But it's hard to ignore how Corsair is written. And that is a very curious approach because it's not even just that, like, Cyclops is weary of his father. Like, Corsair comes out in a towel and, like, man
Yeah, that's
spreads in front
gross.
of Jean. Like, and I've never read, I don't think Corsair is Dad of the Year. I think Corsair is a sleazy space pirate, of course, but I don't think he would ever
Yeah,
hit on his daughter in law. And there's never been an evidence of that in comic books
hmm
prior to this. So that just threw me off tremendously.
very off for sure. Like that was very off. Look, issue two was just as horrible. Like let's let's just be honest about it. It wasn't great. But I do like the aspect that you said. We kind of see Jean having some downtime because it's not always like on the go.
I think seeing, no, I don't want to say like goofier, but like that opening shot where she's sighing and her eyes are kind of glossed over. I like seeing
Yeah,
Jean like that every so often. It's kind of like what we saw in Tom Taylor's X-Men Red when she would talk to Honey Badger and she'd be like,
yeah,
sure, why not? Go for it. You know what I mean? When she was like mind freezing people or whatever she was doing in that issue. So I always like to see Jean a little bit more like she can have a humor or she could be placed in humorous moments.
agreed. Yeah,
All right, so that's our. Anything else to
issue
say on
three. Yeah,
issue two? Anything else on
no,
issue?
issue two. Like we can move past.
All right, talk to me about issue three. Your vibes on it?
So issue three was the Asgardian zombies,
Yeah.
right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so the issue was it was better. I like that Jean. You kind of see again the compassion. You see that she sets these people free, and also I don't know if this is a feat, but Jean kind of overcoming Odin's magic. I think that's something that no one's really talked about. Because we have seen Phoenix breaking spells. We've seen it with House of M, right? With the decimation wave. We've seen Mysterium, which came from the White Hot Room, which was anti magic, and we've seen even Jean breaking a spell on Wong's mind, if I'm not mistaken, one of the Doctor Strange issues. So I did like that, but not I guess not a lot of people talked about that. The fight with the Black Order was fun. Jean is very punchy, though. I'll say that. Like you're not seeing a lot of her powers. You're just seeing like a lot of physical fighting. I don't know if you
Yeah,
noticed that.
I
Like
did
a lot of
notice
punching.
that. Well, I noticed with issues 3 and 4 that it is very action oriented, and I kind of like took pause on
Mhm.
that, and I was like, okay, well, I mean, these are comic books. They're supposed to have an element of action and adventure. So I can forgive that for this, especially given that we
Yeah,
got a Phoenix stance in the first issue, especially where I was going to say season 5, issue 5 sort of lands. But one of the things that I've always argued with Jean, and again, this is going back on what you were saying about Odin's magic, her overcoming Odin's magic, is that Jean is not playing this game of chaos magic or gods, right? And this is obviously a thing
yeah,
that plays out in issue 5. Jean was able, I've always been under my head canon. It's not official head canon, but the reason why Jean did not come back during House of M when everyone had their wishes granted is because Jean is so far beyond chaos magic. And the only thing that
yeah.
could break the witch's spell is hope. At the time we thought it was Jean
The
Reborn, but
Phoenix, yeah,
Phoenix. So, it's for me, I like seeing that finally confirmed, or at least acknowledged that Jean is a being that's not playing the same game. She's not on the same level as a lot of these people. And when Jean
yeah.
fully realizes that, that's where we start seeing the traction, the movement with it.
True. It's no, I do like that. I think that seeing it that way, because at the time a lot of people like, oh, where's Jean if she's so powerful? Where was she during House of M and stuff like that? Uh, it is what it is, but I do like that Hope came in, and then recently they kind of did the retcon where it was Jean
Yeah.
that impregnated Hope's mom. That was nice. That was like a full
I
circle
love
moment.
that. Well, yeah, because it answers all the
Yeah.
questions that we had about Messiah Complex and the locket and et
Mhm.
cetera, et cetera. But where was Jean during House of M? I always say, like, Jean, like, again, so far removed from the human mortal coil. She's amputating timelines in the
Yeah.
white hot room. You know what I mean? Like, and she did come back. Again, it was the rebirth of hope. It was a phoenix coming back to break the witch's curse. But
She
yeah,
she did what she needed to do exactly.
God Queen always comes through. So I get very territorial about Jean during that time, especially not so much with a fan discussion, like when we're all talking amongst ourselves. I think that's very lucrative. It's when editorial sort of steps in and doesn't know the source material as well as some other people. But
Yeah.
that's just me being a little shady. Um, but you know, one thing I'm going to tell you, and this is not a criticism on Stephanie or the series. I am kind of tired of the Black Order following Endgame. Like I remember thinking when they did Ultimate
Same.
Alliance 3, I was like, why is the Black Order here? I talk about like some of the most uninteresting villains in the Marvel universe, not to be an asshole,
Like
but
they're supposed to be so powerful, but somehow they always get their asses kicked. I feel like the hype is done. The hype is done with them. It's time to move on. I do like that they're bringing Thanos, who I would consider like an A-level villain, to Phoenix. I do like that they're kind of doing that, but the Black Order, I don't know. I was a bit iffy on that.
I
I guess they
agree
just
with you.
wanted Jean to flex. That's
Yeah.
probably it. They just wanted to flex her new strength.
But I agree with you. So it's so funny because I understand again like the utility of it because you're bringing in Thanos, who's an A-list Marvel IP, and you're putting him next
Hmm.
to God Queen, and these two. And by the way, he's
Yeah,
gonna lose against Jean,
yeah, for sure.
and that sends a message out to readers who are picking up this book to hopefully what we would see in the MCU one day about Jean's elevated status. She's not just a mutant. She's not just like this other cosmic character. This is someone who can like whip Thanos' ass. So I do appreciate that. I
Exactly.
don't want to sound ungrateful about that. But the Black Order for me, I was just like, we have to get through this.
Yeah. So I mean, I'm glad that but they're gonna come back. I thought it was done. Then the preview showed they're back again in issue 6. I think 6 and 7 is when Jean will deal with them and Thanos. Yeah, if I'm not mistaken.
Okay. But what I'm dying to talk about
So
is the beginning of issue 4, though.
the where Jean has her little moment, her down moment with Carol.
Yeah.
That was such a nice little break. I love that. Like seeing. First of all, I have a new love for. I think I told you this. Like Captain Marvel, I was always on the fence. I never really read her solos, and then I read Civil War 2, and I'm like, oh no, like this is not a character that I'm a fan of. But then I read Kelly Thompson's run, and I loved it. Like that made me a Carol fan. So kind of like seeing her in Phoenix was so nice, just to kind of reassure Jean that you're the strongest person in the world. You need to blah blah blah. That was such a nice moment, just like taking time away from the action.
Yeah, and you know, I think of when I think of Carol and Jean, I always think of X-Men The End, where she awakens, where Jean awakens on the Starjammer, and Carol has become this computer binary persona.
Yeah.
And there's this like I think the reason why those scenes worked and resonated with me is that Claremont really did a lot of like under the current like building of that relationship and in so many ways like two sides of the same coin just with a different like outlook. So seeing Jean and Carol together and I believe they saw each other during the Krakoan age. They have a shot where they're shaking hands or hugging. um
Yeah, that was in the Phoenix. No, sorry, that was in the tie-in with the Brood. I think it was Captain Marvel and X-Men, if I'm not
Yes,
mistaken.
yes,
That
it
they
was
both
Captain
meet.
Marvel. Yeah,
Yes, yes, that was
yes,
it.
yeah, that was it. I'm really so again, like it was just really nice to see Jean again with this other cosmic character, and having this moment and reassuring her place there because I think a lot of people who probably haven't read X-Men as long as we have, like we lived through an
Hmm.
era where Jean was fainting on screen and people made fun of it, and I still get like If you, Calvin, if people
People
really
still
want,
make fun of it, and it pisses me off.
pisses me
It
off.
pisses me
If
off.
you
Like,
ever want to get under my skin, show me a video of Gene fainting and laughing
oh,
about it. Oh my God, it boils my blood.
same. Like, I don't generally like like to respond to people who say negative things, but when it's about the gene fainting thing, I just need to jump in sometimes. It's like this was in the '90s. Like, what are you guys on about?
Yeah. And also like I'm
Anyways, it
sorry,
is
like
what.
if you care so much about representation how people are depicted, then you wouldn't be circulating a video. Sorry. I'm going to rant about that cuz I get so it boils my blood to like it's like the Kill Bill
No, no,
sirens
I
like hit
feel
my
you.
face. Um, but it's so nice because again, like even in the comic books at the time, Jean's power levels were sort of all over the place. Sometimes she was just a girlfriend, sometimes she was this very powerful being, but it was largely inconsistent. It's so nice to have a moment and a scene where Jean, you are powerful, and the rest of the Marvel universe, as
Yeah.
indicated by Carol, is aware of it finally. Like no exclamation point on that sentence. But we do get
Hmm.
Gladiator again in this issue, and he's not too happy that Jean is back as Phoenix.
I like that they kind of touch upon the murder of the Grey family because that's kind of been swept under the rug. I don't know if they'll deal with it going forward, but I like that they acknowledged it. I mean, I'll give them points for that because no one's talked about it since it happened, right? Unless
Um,
or Gene
we
has not talked about it.
we've had two instances. We had one instance when Teen Jean was like, "Oh, my entire family was murdered." You know what I mean? Like when
Yeah.
she had just come back,
Hmm.
and then Adult Jean and Phoenix Resurrection acknowledged that Elaine and John were
Yeah.
dead. That's it. But yeah,
Hmm.
like Jean should be carrying some kind of I don't know, vendetta against her. The only thing I'm going to say
For
about
sure.
the little asterisk I'm going to give here is that this felt a little bit of Trial of Jean Grey with Gladiator once again being upset to see Jean around. And I'm like, did we already
Yeah.
dip? Have we already touched upon this? But as we will see, my fears were quenched in issue 5, though. Um,
Yeah. For sure. So what happens? So Pericus comes in. Like, I don't know how I feel about Pericus. I've never read him. I just like literally went to Wikipedia to read his entry. I don't know much about him. I hope they make him a compelling villain, but as of now, he's just there. At least that's what I think. He's just there with his
yeah,
weird cape and his weird costume.
he's I can listen. He's a throwaway villain for me. I don't think much about him. I knew I guess he was a Thor villain. I had heard murmurs of him throughout the
Mhm.
years. I dip a toe here and there sometimes with Thor. I mean, here's a little secret. I do like Thor comics, but I'm not wild about like the character. And that's it. I mean,
Yeah, yeah,
it's
I get
fine.
that.
Like he can be whoever wants, but I get it. You're expanding Gene in the Marvel universe.
Yeah. And then they kind of set Gore on her, which was very random. I thought like Gore, and he has a power up, right? So now his all black has kind of how to say encapsulated his heart, and now it's what's powering him. So arguably, he's stronger than when he fought Thor, if I'm not mistaken.
Sure.
Pretty
You know,
much.
I with all that stuff, I
Yeah.
just nod. I'm like, you, whatever Marvel wants to tell me about power levels, I'll accept. But um,
Yeah.
so he's able to defeat God Queen, and is she
Yeah.
dead? Is she? It's the question that leads into issue 5,
Like
which
the Twitter fallout is when she's dead again. I was like, no, like what is happening? Like you know, I was a bit worried. Like why are they going in this direction? So like the wait for issue 4 and 5, I believe, was more than a month, if I'm not mistaken. I
it
think I could
was.
be wrong though.
No, you were right. You're
Yeah, it
right.
was quite
It was
long.
long. Yeah.
Yeah, so I'm a part of like a Jean Grey group, and everybody's like, "Oh no, like they killed her off again," stuff like that. So there was a lot of worry going on. But then, like issue 5 came in, and safe to say, like they've kind of changed a lot of like what Jean and the Phoenix are, right?
Yeah.
Within
It's
that
really
issue.
well, so Jean sort of like awakens and she's having a conversation with Eternity, and Eternity is talking to her about how she can now join their ranks. That she's not a
Yeah,
god. Like Gore can kill a god, but Jean is beyond godhood. And
beyond that.
Calvin, when I tell you, that just put the biggest smile. That is who Jean is, like the nexus of all creation, right? And Eternity mentions it that there's a piece of her in everything.
View in every star. Yeah.
Oh,
So so
so
good.
beautiful. And I know this piggybacks off of the Louise Simonson Jean Grey issue, which is Jean and Phoenix are one and the same. And I love the idea that Jean created the Phoenix. And the Phoenix is a
Yeah.
manifestation of Jean all around the Marvel universe. So for me, I love that. But there was a little line here that I think ties back to End Song, which is Jean Grey is a concept. And this is really
Yeah.
important for
He
Jean.
he says that to her. Yeah. So I
Jean,
like that, she's only dying because she thinks of herself in a finite sense, like she thinks of herself in limits of life and death. And I thought that was pretty smart because end of the day, with the way Jean's operating right now, it's like there are limits that she's put on herself, you know? So she's operating within the limits that she's setting for herself. And then that's when eternity is like, Jean Grey is a concept. And I think the best part of this issue was Jean saying, I don't want to lose Jean Grey. Because that's always been the struggle, right? Of Jean trying to hold on to herself. Even when the Dark Phoenix came in, even as White Phoenix, like she just wanted to be Jean more than anything. She didn't want to lose that aspect of herself. So to me, that was the best part of this issue. Just Jean at least mentioning it, like I don't want to. What's important to me is being Jean Grey, which
yeah.
is like my favorite
Well,
part of this.
well, again, the end of End Song, Cyclops is like, "Who are you?" And she's like, Jean Grey." And
Yeah.
he's here, like, "Remember that." And
See,
also, the
it's a
Watcher,
theme. Yeah.
the Watcher at the end of Dark Phoenix says the iconic line, "Jean Grey could have lived to become a god, but it was important for her to die a
She
human."
chose dies.
Yeah.
Yep.
Oh,
So
and
like I
so,
said, like
uh,
it's so good like how Stephanie is like connecting these things, like of just Jean wanting to be herself, given all these power amps, and like power ups, whatever you call it.
so I mean, listen, for me, it was such a pivot and a turning point for me as a reader. Um, I feel really, really, I don't know. I just feel good about the series because of this first. And by the way, I think the whole
Same.
entire internet was like in a resounding clap.
So I'll get to so I'm on Twitter and a lot of as you know, Twitter is a lot of negative. So
Mm,
quite a few people I would see comments like, "Oh, like why is Jean dealing with small fry? She would just took out Enigma, and that was
hmm.
probably the biggest feat she's ever done. So like, why is she dealing with small fry? She should be, dealing with bigger concepts, bigger entities." And a lot of them after reading issue 5, they post saying, "Okay, I was wrong. Like, I didn't see the game." They were like, "Stephanie, I didn't see your end game, so I apologize." So I think this issue kind of changed a lot of people's minds about where the Phoenix issue is. I mean, what it is, the core elements of it. So I think like if I want to convince someone to read this, like issue 5, I could just shove it in their face, like just read this.
Well, my face cracked. So
That's
first of all,
exactly
I agree with you. I mean, 100%. Issue 5 is where I think you work backwards for this series. Issue 1 and 5
yeah.
are you're definitely the best, but my face cracked when the gladiator is looking at her in like the mirror or whatever like thing they have, and she turns to the camera. She's like, "I can
I
see
can,
you."
yeah, I can hear. I laughed, and then I even called my sister. I'm like, look at this. And that
And it
was that
was
was so good.
did you clock though? I don't know if this was an intentional Easter egg or not, but you remember for AVX the slogan was "It's coming" in reference to the Phoenix, and then
Yeah.
Gladiator
Uh
here
huh.
says the Phoenix is coming, and I'm always gonna
Yeah.
be like I'm always gonna be like such a wide-eyed reader when someone says the Phoenix is coming. It's like, oh shit, all hands on deck. So for me, Stephanie did so much great setup. The only thing I'm going to tell you that I thought we were going to get when Jean came back from that conversation with Eternity, um, I thought this is where we were going to see that new costume, the Queen costume, come.
This would have been the time to do it. I agree with you. Like I've said it to a friend. I was like, why have another transformation after this? This is exactly when it needed to happen.
Yeah,
But
that's
there's probably
the.
something like I won't question it. I won't question it. So
I agree.
this was the
Listen,
time it needed to happen.
I, I think if there's something about issue 5 that for us very meticulous and neurotic Gene fans, Stephanie understands it. Like, and Stephanie is playing the long game,
Hmm.
as you've said, to piggyback on that. So, like, yeah, I'm not going to question it. Maybe something else is going to come out of this. I just that moment where it's like you are creation. She's sort of bursting like that. I thought it was going to
The
reveal her
costume. Oh, it would have been
everything.
like chef's kiss if the costume came out. I was. Anyways, I'll be patient because I'm like hopeful that the series goes beyond 10 issues. I hope that we get at least 20 to tell a good story. 10 issues is not enough.
No, I agree. I for me, 20 is the sweet spot. And I always think of X-Men
Yeah.
Red. When X-Men Red got that executive order to like stop because the story just rushes to the
Oh,
end. And X-Men Red was
yeah.
so X-Men Red Volume 1 was so good. I love that
So
so much.
so monumental at the time. Like it was something different. Like everyone sees Jean as this like bulldozer. They always say, Jean is like a bully, stuff like that. She's very forceful. So I feel this was like a different approach. It was very pacifist, I would say. It kind of gave us a different look at Jean. X-Men Red was so good. I read it every now and then. Whenever I have free time, I go back and read it.
Well, I think Tom Taylor just gives you so much meat in just one issue. And I think I
Hmm.
will give that compliment also to Stephanie when you go back and you start reading the issues under the lens of issue 5. You see a lot of the seeds
Yeah.
she's planted, but
Jean turns Gore into a star,
oh,
which
that's
we'll talk
right.
about later because that's one of the questions that I received. Like, how do you feel Jean being so powerful like that? Like, what's your take on it?
Me personally, I
Yeah.
listen. In my understanding of Jean, when she's a phoenix, she can amputate a fucking timeline. So for me, I'm not upset about her displaying that kind of power level. I I can see the argument on the other side of like, well, when you have a character who can turn everyone into a star, what kind of conflict do you have there? You know what I mean? But I think a
Yeah.
good writer like Stephanie can sort of maneuver her way around those kinds of
Around it.
situations.
That's true.
What do you think? You tell me.
Of course, I love power feats, and stuff like that. But there is like a genuine question we'll get to later, which we can talk about. But I thought that was pretty nice, like taking how to say something like you know like she says, like you've caused so much death, now you will like sustain, you will give life. That's
Right.
such a nice thing to see because even in the first issue, that's what Jean does. She reignites the sun, right? So it's kind of like a theme. Like Jean is taking things and giving them life to sustain life rather than destruction, death, and stuff like that. So it's more like creation. She's
Uh,
creating something.
well, so and again to that point, this is playing into what it means to be a phoenix. She's not killing things. She is giving it
Yeah.
rebirth. That is creation, and
Hmm.
how about this? She is repurposing. you know the with her power set, and I think creating like Gore as a star, like it was lovely. Like again, no qualms
Yeah.
with it. Let's see where it goes. I mean, I think this makes sense that when you're dealing with characters on a cosmic level, you need to sort of think outside of the box with like power sets and stuff like
Yeah.
that. So again, it doesn't bother me. I don't think it was that big of a power display because again, we've seen Gene reset timelines. Um, let's see where it goes. Again, it's a game of wait and see.
So then, like, we move on to the council, and they're like, okay, see what she just did, Like, they're scared, of course. And now, people that were in support of her have actually turned, right, on her.
Mm-hmm.
They're also worried now because they can see what she's done. So moving on, Jean is very frustrated. She's very angry that she couldn't find Pericus. And then Adani comes in. Oh, my eyes roll. I'm like, she's back. So my thoughts about Adani is I think she's supposed to mirror a young Jean Grey because if you notice, her weapon is giving her TP, right? That she can't shut out the voices.
Oh, yeah, you're
And then
right. That's a very
yeah,
fair analysis.
what what Jean does for her is what Xavier did for Jean. So kind of like helped her control the voices. That's what I think Adani is supposed to represent, like a young Jean Grey. At least that's what I believe.
I listen, I think that is a beautiful I'm gonna be honest with you. I did not have that read. Um, but I agree with you. I'm looking at the pages right now, and there's absolutely no way you can argue against that because she does silence. And she is
Mm-hmm.
very upset. And she's like, it hurts. And that's something that we know like a
Yeah,
young Jean always said.
and she understands, the voices coming in at whatever it is, and she silences them, but she's still Adani's still mad, like because understandably her dad was killed, things like that. She had to undergo a transformation. So I'm excited to see where this goes. Because I honestly didn't think Adani could be a viable villain for Jean, at least like with her little sword. What the hell is she gonna do,
With her little sword. That's going
right?
to be the
Right?
name of this
Yeah, like
episode. Adani and her little sword.
yeah, exactly. Like you see pictures, like what are you gonna do with the little sword?
Adorable.
That's just what I think.
And then
And then
it
the final
ends.
pages goes
Mhm.
into Thanos stepping in.
Yep. Um,
So what I like about this is it's gonna bring in a lot of Thanos. Thanos has a lot of fandom. Like I don't know
yeah.
about like where I live in Kuwait, at least it's like so many people love Thanos because of the MCU. Like you see them with the gauntlet, you see them with T-shirts. So I think this is a good move. It's gonna bring a lot of people in. Uh, yeah, but what do you think of Thanos joining the ranks?
Yeah, I think I agree with you. It's kind of hard for me to like see um the Thanos fandom here because obviously it was peaked during Endgame and it's sort of subsided down from what I've seen. But I interact mostly with like the X-Men community, but I think like the Thanos IP, there's no doubting that that is an A-list Marvel property. And again, Gene and him going at it, I love it, and I love Cosmic Marvel. I really do love Cosmic Marvel, and Thanos is sort of epitomized with that. So bring it on. I
Yeah, I
want.
agree.
I'm curious. So you have someone like Thanos who has been around for a while. Now you have Jean, who is like the symbol of creation, right? Like Thanos is basically going up against the creation herself. So I'm curious how that kind of conversation is going to be, especially given that Thanos is a deeply philosophical character
And he's tried to conquer the Phoenix, I believe, in his one of his solo series, which I need to go back and read just in
with
case
his son.
there's
Yeah,
references. But he's never dealt with the true Phoenix, with Jean. So I guess it's gonna be something he's not expecting.
I'm excited.
But
I
I'm
really
excited
want to
too.
see how I'm sorry we had to go through the Black Order to get to Thanos. It makes sense. I'm not faulting anyone for that. But I just like we are with Thanos. I am happy. I wonder, I mean, again, Lady Death also plays such a pivotal role in the Thanos character. And then you have something like death and creation, sort of two ideologies sort of going, on Thanos' shoulders. So let's see where it goes.
But one thing I do think is like I do think that Pericus is playing everybody, and I find it weird that Thanos can't see through, Pericus because, like again, I don't know anything about Pericus, and it's Pericus is part of the Dark Gods. I think that's what they're called, who will come up in issue 8, where we see the new Cosmic Phoenix. So interesting stuff.
I'm really excited. All right. Do we want to rank them? Do we want to
Okay,
rank the issues?
yeah. So I'll start with 5 as I'll go best to worst, right? So
Yeah.
5, 1, 4, 3, 2.
I 100% mine. 100% mine.
Yeah.
That's exactly how I'm doing it. Yeah. Well, five for what we have been ranting about for the last 20 minutes. Issue one for all of the great setup it did, and finally giving us the Jean we've really wanted. Four, because the Carol and Jean scene for me, it just put a smile on my
Yeah,
face. And then three and two being obvious why it's so
the
low.
worst.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Wait, Curse of the Twos.
Curse of the Twos. Like, yeah, you should check that out. Honestly, you should take a look. Like, Psylocke is coming out next. We should keep an eye on see if it's true. Because Psylocke one was phenomenal. I loved Psylocke one. I have you read it?
I have. I thought it was so good, and we like Alyssa
So
very much. We've reached out to Alyssa, so hopefully we can get her on the pod sometime.
fingers crossed for you.
Fingers crossed.
Um, yeah. So I have I got a few questions from some of my followers. Five. I picked five. We
And,
can go
and
through them,
I
and
picked five as
then
well,
you can
so
do the
this is gonna
same.
be fun. Yeah.
Okay. Perfect. Okay. So the first one is, what do you say to those that say Jean is too powerful to be confined to Earth and the X-Men? It's a good one. It's a good question.
It is a good one. I don't. I think any good writer, as we kind of discussed, and by the way, I got a lot of questions about Gene being OP. Everyone always wants to know about Gene being OP. I
Same.
think within when you're dealing with a good character writer, the OPness sort of has her power set is clearly defined, and Jean being able to transcend Earth and be a cosmic character like Silver Surfer, like Thor, etc. I think you can tell some really good stories, especially with Jean struggling with a self
Yeah.
identity about Jean being a concept. So I don't know. I don't. It doesn't really matter to me as long as like the writing is good. That's sort of where I've always landed. How about you?
No, I agree. It's the same thing. I'd say with Wanda. Wanda is so powerful, like, but she's kind of thriving on a Avengers team right now. It's like what I say with people. Like, okay, let's say, for example, someone as an individual, you're gonna go to the gym. On some days, you're gonna push, the heaviest weight you can. On some days, you can barely lift anything. So I don't think Gene should be operating on 100% all the time. It should be in moments of duress. It should be in moments of need. Like Gene is not always going to be 100%. So I
Right.
do think finding that balance works. Like as
Well,
you said, it's about the writing.
yeah, and Stephanie's already planted those seeds. Again, like that Jean has set her own
Mm-hmm.
limits, that she again, like you pointed out when
Yeah.
we reviewed issue one, her own power is the thing that's stopping Jean. So I don't see Jean overcoming that. I think if you're gonna tell a good story, that's gonna be a large part of it. But Jean is going up and having conversations with characters like Eternity, right? I don't think I don't think her being OP should be an issue. But I mean, on the current like
Good
status
point.
of where she's supposed to be, she's in the cosmos. She needs to have some power.
Yeah, she's doing what she needs to do. Okay, so the second one would be: do you prefer Jean out in space or back at home with the X-Men? Oh, this is a tricky one. Okay, go first. Like these questions, I want to hear your opinion. Then I'll give you what I think.
I I'm happy with her in space, Calvin. I love Jean as a
Okay.
cosmic character. I just love it. And the way it's done here. She still has her connection to Earth.
Mhm.
She's off discovering herself. She and Cyclops are stable, but oh my god, I'm a sucker for Jean in space. I love it. So I think
Okay,
she has a heart. I think the X
that's a
Men
good one.
are lacking with that. I said this during the not Krakoan, excuse me, the Utopian era when she was not on the mortal plane. You need Jean on the team for heart and soul. She brings so much levity, but like that's kind of like a
Agree.
this. Okay, here's me being
Uh,
like a crazy fan here. That's kind of selfish that the team needs Jean as a heart and soul. They should be able to figure it out. Jean as a character is so powerful. She needs to be in the cosmos. How about that? How about that as a crazy
yeah.
response?
Think of it this way: whenever Jean wasn't there, the X Men go through really dark times. Like
Yeah.
think about the Utopian era. Right now, what's going on from the Ashes? Like it's very grim when Jean's not around. Of course, that could be us being biased, but yeah.
No,
So
we're not being biased. Wait, I'm sorry to interrupt you. We're not being biased. She
yeah,
actually, if you even look at all the stories while Jean was dead, it all centers around Jean or the Phoenix. We're talking even Age of
yeah,
Apocalypse Jean, teen Jean, even Hope, when we didn't know if Hope was Jean or not, it still posed the question. Jean, for those 13 years since she was gone, she was still very much a question mark and always present. The X-Men need Jean. Ah, sorry. That's where I go crazy.
No, I love that. No, that's the best way to say it. So for me, I think I like Gene out in space. You know, like I'm enjoying it right now. But I do think all the X Men. I wouldn't say Gene. Like while they're good solo, I think the X Men are an ensemble cast. You know, they play well off each other. Like their interactions are what really get you to the core of X Men. Like let's say Kurt and like personally, I'm not a fan of Wolverine, but when they put him alongside Kurt, like it's so much fun to read. You know, just them bouncing off each other. I do like the character dynamics. But for Jean right now, I'll say I'm happy with what she's doing. You know, but I hope it's not forever. Let her do her thing and then head back home.
Agree.
That's what
Agree.
I'd say.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Perfect response.
Third one is should Marvel revisit Dark Phoenix?
No.
No,
No. That's it. It's a
not at
classic.
all. Not at
And
all.
by the way, they already did kind of revisit Dark Phoenix because Revort on his Form Spring, when AVX was being published, they kind of alluded that AVX was a sequel to Dark Phoenix. So,
Dark Phoenix.
yeah,
Okay.
there you go.
Like Dark Phoenix, I think they should leave it in the past because Jean is in control right now. But I would like to see a live action adaptation of it, like
Yes.
whenever it happens. MCU. Okay. The fourth one is how do you feel about the direction of the series?
Yeah, I'm feeling good. I wasn't feeling, I mean, as we already discussed at nauseum, I think issue 2 and 3, I kind of like questioned it. But once we got to 4 and especially 5, that's it. Like, I trust Stephanie Phillips impeccably.
Yeah. For me, I was a little doubtful. Like after the first episode, I'm like, great. Then episode two, I was like, okay, what's going on? Then three, you know, I was like, fake it till you make it. Let's hope it gets better. But okay, issue five, stellar, great. Like I'm happy about it now. But I just don't like the idea of the Dark Gods. Like I don't know them as a team. Uh, I'm still on the fence about that. Like, you know, like what are they going to add to the book? But I'm keeping my mind open because, you know, episode five, issue five really, how to say, cured any doubts that I have. Okay, moving on. So, five, give us a few of your favorite and least favorite things about the series. So, let's do two favorite and two least favorite, or three.
Okay, well, one, because I
Okay.
can't get out of my head right now, my favorite, I can't wait for the new costume to debut. I'm so excited for it. Like absurdly excited. Um, Two, I think Stephanie understands Jean operating on in a cosmic playground. So I'm really happy with that. What I don't like, I didn't like how Corsair was written at all. I
Mm-hmm.
feel like that is a significant like mark on the series. And I don't know. I mean, I guess I don't like Adani that much, but like whatever. Like I can tolerate her. That's it. So that's it.
Yeah.
I don't. There's not much to
Uh,
dislike on the series.
for me, favorite things, of course, the new costume that's coming in. I think that's great. And the second thing I like is the duality that you get to see with Jean. It's not just a one note character. So for this, the least favorite, I'm gonna be a little shady here. Okay, I don't love the art. Like I'm gonna be honest with you, I don't love the art. Like Marco Rena
Yeah.
stepped in and did an amazing job with part of issue five. He's gonna do six and seven. I've spoken to him like, and I've been praising him left and right. I do, but I don't. My main issue with the art is I don't like the way Jean is drawn. Like her face, she kind of looks like a bird at times, like an
That's
actual
fair.
bird, you know. But I think where Miracolo excels is his cosmic scenes, like you know when she's all fired up in the cosmos. I just think that's his strength, you know. So when he draws her that way, I'm a fan. But like in the human form, eh. Second, I don't like the villains. I'm still on the fence about Pericus, as I said. Like I don't know. I just he needs to change my mind.
Well, I think
And those are my questions.
you
Yeah,
need some compelling villains for a Jean story, and how Cassandra
yeah,
Nova, for example, worked because they had that history, during New X Men. So I
yeah.
agree with you.
True. Like a
All
new
right.
villain would have made a lot of sense, you know, something born of something, you know. That would have been that would have been great. But you know, here we are.
Revenge of the Broccoli People, the Dabari. Revenge of the Dabari. That should have been the first.
Invasion of the broccoli people.
Okay, so we solicited to the Familia, and we got a lot of the similar questions, I'm sure. So I tried to pick ones that were very unique, and the first one was, what were your thoughts on Jean in the Iron Man Armored Wars series from like years ago? What were your thoughts of her on
I've only
there?
seen clips of it. I've only seen clips of that, by the way. I've not watched it. I knew she was in the series, and she
Hmm.
doesn't look like Jean, right? From what I know, she doesn't have red hair, right? She has black hair, is it?
Well, it's kind of like a dark auburn-y color, right?
Okay, I'm pulling that up.
Hey, pull it up.
So
Hang on.
Jean Grey, Jean Grey, Armored Wars, right?
Was she wearing a wig? Was she in disguise for it? I mean,
I know
it's
that she
like,
was running away or something.
yeah, she's running from
Yeah,
Magneto. Yeah,
yeah, I remember
she's
this. I've seen clips of it, you know. So
yeah. I haven't seen it in a while. She's wearing. I remember the orange sweater. I'm googling it now too. Um, yeah, there she is.
yeah, that's it.
How about this? I was surprised when it happened because this was a time where like the MCU, like the film rights were dictating everything. And I was surprised they put an X
Yeah,
character in, or that they were even allowed to do that.
same. Because we would not see any X characters anywhere. I remember there was a time where it was just like the Avengers and stuff like that. So this was a nice surprise. I remember YouTubing videos of it. I've never watched it though. I should.
Um, yeah, I mean, she's under the alias Annie Claremont, which is a homage to Annie, her childhood best friend, and Claremont, Chris
Yeah.
Claremont. Um, I'm fine with it. Again, it was a surprise. She was on the
Mm-hmm.
run from Magneto, and at the end, she joins. Xavier comes to get her. So I thought it was cute, cute
Yeah.
story. All right. Um, Here's one from Uncanny X-Men 185, I believe. Is that the issue where Storm and Forge are sort of ruminating on Forge's proposal? But we had someone
Uh,
who tapped in and said she was wrong for how she answered Forge about whether Storm should marry him or not. What do you think about that?
okay. First of all, people are still mad about that. Like, okay. Like I've said to friends, like Jean isn't the kind of person to lie. You know, like her non-answer shouldn't have been taken in any way. That's Forge. That's on Forge. You know, so you can't really be mad at her for not, sugarcoating anything. That's what I think. I don't think she did anything wrong, at least.
So first of all, there's like this responsibility that telepaths have, this unspoken code that they're not reading minds and influencing people, right? Like we've seen that sort
Mm-hmm.
of like telepathic morality being around. Second of all, Forge is fucking crazy. Like the forge in those issues it's the same exact forge. You can trace the origins in this to Ghostbox's forge, where he like blows everyone up in that astonishing like story. Um,
Unhinged, right? Yeah,
Unhinged. And I feel like Jean, like, first of all, Storm was going to say yes. That iconic scene where Storm falls, and she's like, I was going to say yes.
yeah.
So
Yep.
I don't think it's fair for her to talk on behalf of her best friend. And Forge putting her in that situation really shows that Forge does not love Storm in the way that probably Jean loves Storm, the way other people love Storm.
Mm,
Um, because
yeah.
like I just
Same.
think like if someone cornered me with like my best friend, that Varian lad, if someone cornered me to ask me a question about Sean and I would speak on behalf of Sean, I would think that would be such a horrible thing. So I
Thing,
don't
right?
know. I'm Team Jean on
It's a
this.
very
I don't think she
awkward
did anything
position to
wrong.
be put. Yeah,
That's on Forge.
same. Uh,
That's some bullshit there.
yeah, exactly. You want you want the answer. Go get a straight answer. Don't code whatever people will say or won't say to you.
I'm sorry if you have to ask the best friend. That's probably more of an indication that something's wrong with your relationship. Sorry.
Good point.
There's that
Good
rant.
point. Good point. Now I like that. Yeah.
Okay, here's another one. Do you envision Jean catching up with Cannonball and Sunspot?
Um, it could happen. Like, where did we leave them last? The whole what do you call? Cannonball was in space, right? With
Yeah.
Smasher, is it?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I
And
would,
they
I,
have a
I would,
child.
I would like to. yeah. I would like to see it. Like, it's always nice for Jean to catch up with, like, But it seems like they've already kind of rounded her team up to Nova, Carol, Valkyrie, and Raccoon, and Rocket. But yeah, I would be down for it. Like, I'm always up for new interactions, stuff like
Yeah,
that. What about you?
I'm indifferent to it. I don't think like listen, I always loved Cannonball during the Onslaught era when he joined the team. I don't think him and Gene particularly had any strong chemistry. So I mean like they have lunch, you know? They're in the same quadrant of the galaxy and so they just pop in and have a brunch and then they move on. That's you know, Roberto pays for it. That's
That could
it.
happen.
That's yeah.
Yeah.
I'm indifferent.
Sm-
I'm largely indifferent.
Smasher is part of the Shi'ar Royal Guard, is it? I'm not
Yeah.
too familiar. Yeah,
Yeah.
so I mean, if Jean does come for Gladiator, we could see some kind of interaction.
Yeah, and you
She
know what?
should go for Glad. She should go for Gladiator though. Just saying.
Oh, I want to see the real
Yeah, she
fight.
should.
Yeah, right there. I would like to see Cannonball sort of caught in the middle, like, hey, Shi'ar or the X-Men. You know, that'd be interesting.
Mm-hmm.
That's it.
Yeah, that'd be
Oh,
interesting.
all right. Here's the last two are deeply philosophical. So I want to hear from you on these. Um, with such strong source material, why haven't they gotten a live action Phoenix story right?
Simple, I'll say. I think technology and budget constraints, because when they wanted to do Phoenix back in the day when they had the rights, like they didn't have the technology to kind of do what the MCU is doing right now, to do this big grand scale. Also, I don't think that they're patient enough to do a build up, because you can't do a Phoenix story without a proper build up to it. You can't just have her be Phoenix, which is what they did, which was weird. They did it with how to say Apocalypse and Dark Phoenix. Like at the end of Apocalypse, you see Jean manifesting the Phoenix, and then in Dark Phoenix, she doesn't know what the Phoenix is. I'm just like I was in the cinema, just scratching my head, thinking like, what's going on, And I'm like the only X fan in my family, and then my friend was like, wasn't she like the Phoenix in the last movie? Like, why is she getting possessed again? I'm just like, I don't know. I can't. I have nothing to say. I just think that they're not patient enough and probably budget constraints. That's what I would say. Simple answer. What
I
about you?
want to agree. I 100% agree. And it's so funny. So I went to a con a couple of weeks ago and Chris Claremont was there. And this is really funny though. And Chris was like, "Oh, I'm going to tell everyone in this room something, but you can't report on it because we did a section for press." And I was like, "Ooh, he's going to give us some really good tea." He's like, "Simon Kinberg originally wanted to do two movies with the Phoenix, and they had to rush it." I was like, "Dude,
Oh,
that's." I was like thinking in my head, "Dude, that's been reported on like already quite a
yeah,
bit." And
exactly.
even if that's true, which I'm assuming since it's been reported on, it is true. It doesn't excuse how Dark Phoenix played out. Like it's basically a retelling of X3, and
Oh
again,
yeah,
and then Claremont again was like, "Oh, and don't tell anyone this, but the ending was supposed to be like Captain Marvel." It's like, yes, we all
I've
know
heard
this.
that.
I was
I've heard
like,
that.
we all know this, Chris. Like, oh, poor Chris.
Yeah,
But like, Chris is like not on like social media at all. Like, he clearly is not in the loop on it. But I think what I'm trying to say with that is that like they need two movies to tell a proper story, and they kind of got
they
that in
need.
the original trilogy, but they fumbled. They fumbled so hard with
They
when
did.
Brett Ratner came in.
They just need to build it up. I'll give like the example of the MCU. Building Thanos up was why he was such a good villain.
Agree.
Having little dips, little peaks of him here and there is it just takes patience. I just hope they do that. They don't rush it. But do you think they'll do Phoenix in the MCU? Just to break away from the questions. Like, do you think they'll do Phoenix?
So I've gotten tea on this. How about this? I hear they're not
Yeah,
going to
yeah.
touch Phoenix. They're not going to touch Phoenix for a while, and because of sort of the problems they've had in previous live actions. But it is something that's part of their long term planning. That apparently for the
Okay.
mutant age, right? That everyone's talking about. Um,
Uh-huh.
that they are gonna a finale of sorts would be a Phoenix saga. That's sort of where they want to go towards, but
Okay.
not. We're talking like a decade long storytelling, which
Okay, which is fine.
do it.
I like a game plan. Yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, and that's from a source that I actually really do trust, and they've been right in the past with some things. So let's see where it goes.
Okay.
All
Yeah.
right. Bringing us home for the final question is: are you worried
I
Jean will
love
lose herself?
good question. So, like, in regards to her talk with Eternity, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So, I don't think Jean will lose herself. I do think that at the end of the series, you could possibly see Jean faced with the chance of ascending and giving up Jean Grey, or kind of de escalating. I do think Jean will choose to stay Jean Grey, which
Agreed.
is the way I would like to see it, because Jean has never wanted power. She's never craved it. So I do like the idea of her, kind of in the face of it, just rejecting it, and I'm just gonna be Jean Grey, and I'm happy this way.
And I hope that ends. I agree with you. First of all, that's great storytelling, and I hope it ends with Jean de-escalating, but also keeping the Phoenix with her. Like I think a lot of people forget that Rachel had the Phoenix during Excalibur, and it did not infringe on
Hmm.
any storytelling. It was just part of the character's journey. I want Jean to remain with the Phoenix, and she can go back to Earth. She can do whatever she needs to.
I have some kind of tea on this. I don't know how true it is, but whispers from the insiders. They say that at the end of this run, Jean is gonna share the Phoenix. She's gonna like allow others to harness it. That's what I hear. So
Okay.
it's not she's not gonna be power. She's not gonna be operating on a full scale all the time. She's gonna like allow other hosts to take it or something like that.
All right. Well, let's see
I
where
don't
it
know how I feel
goes.
about that. I don't know
I
how I
j-
feel about it, but yeah, let's see how it goes.
it feels that feels a little regressive, to be honest with you, because like
It
the entire
does.
point has been to establish Gene and the Phoenix, and sort of clean. The
Hmm.
one thing that I've never liked from editorial and through ages of editorial, so not just one editor, how a lot of people are like, oh, the Phoenix is such a complicated thing, blah blah blah. It's like, well, you make it complicated because you keep going back and forth on it. Like, just stick to a
Yeah,
plan
yeah,
and keep it for a couple years. So let's see how
exactly.
things end up. Alrighty, sir. Where can the
All right.
folks at home find you?
Okay, so I have to apologize for this. I've not been as active. I feel like lately I've been lacking motivation. Like I've told you. But Instagram, I plan to be more active in the coming year. That's my goal, like to bring back my costume battles, which I've not done in a while. Just review issues again. Just be more active on my Instagram page. Hopefully YouTube, maybe in the coming year. I don't know. Let's see how it goes.
I have to tell you, it's in your head because you are so active. I love seeing your content every time you do the issue recaps and stuff like that. It's, it was a tradition pre-pandemic that I'd be waiting for you to post your things, and now I feel even better when I see it. So, um, but yeah, and listen, I've sort of made peace with the fact that we all go through waves with social media, and like some days you want to be really active, and some
It's
weeks
like
you're just
just
like
the
no
motivation
motivation.
sometimes doesn't, it just doesn't come to you sometimes, it's like, but yeah, everyone has their down moments, and hopefully 2025 is a better year, you know, in regards to that. More content, more, however it is.
Famous last words.